so let's start with Star Fox. What do we have to say? What haven't we said? We've said plenty.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. So I played. I beat the game, did the final battle. Not
Say
gonna
whatever you want.
I don't want to. People haven't played it yet.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil anything because, as you can imagine, the final boss in a Star Fox game is going to be a complete shocker to everyone. It's
kind of like that guy who shows up at the end of Zelda.
Yeah. I beat the game, and then I was still motivated to go back and play it. And I saw you logged quite the hours on the game trying to get the medals, and so there's plenty more to do. And I saw when the reviews went up, there was I saw some comments saying like unacceptable for our campaign. It's like that's the kind of game like on-rail shooters are like that, right? It is more about then going back and challenging yourself to find all the hidden stuff. And in Star Fox, on the map, find the hidden paths too, right? Like there's certain things you do in the very first level once you've beaten the game where you can go down a different path. And so, some stages you'll get a new angle on, or the missions will be completely different. So I think there's a good amount of content in it. And then considering that you get Guard with the game when you buy the package right now, that's pretty good value for the game. Yeah.
I always have a tough time sort of with that debate of attributing value or worth to length or duration. Video games are one of the only mediums where we do that. No one ever says
because you're grown up and you can buy a lot of games, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. That's a big part of it. But it's also I like shorter movies aren't less money than regular movies. Shorter books or longer books aren't. I mean, so I think it's really like it's also where we are nowadays. Like if you wanted to, you could go to your grocery store and go to Redbox and rent Star Fox and spend $5 and get everything you need out of it. But like I think that this is the kind of game that everybody who owns a Wii U should experience. And to say something's not worth that kind of money is a little weird to me because I actually kind of miss the day and age of games having this sort of campaign that you could finish in a sitting or in one or two sittings. Like that is so far gone nowadays. Star Fox is based on the kind of its predecessors are arcade shooters. We used to go into arcades, you would put a row of quarters down, you and your friends would line up, and in the amount of time that a birthday party would last, which was never long enough, you could finish a game like that. And I really miss that. I really miss it. And I think that going back and being an expert at it is really cool too. So whether you go in and you play through it once, I mean, maybe rent it if that's all you want to do, but if it's the kind of thing that you think you can do a few laps through, which I think you will want to, then get in there and do that.
I wonder if we're dinosaurs in that we are part of the generation that saw arcade games and did not mind experiences that were shorter and could be done. I feel like on console there's always been though the weird debate of can I justify this purchase? Because we also lived through PlayStation 2 era. I felt like we saw more of it. PlayStation 1 era, I feel like we saw more of it. And by today's standards, so much has changed about the way games are presented and the way games are sold, specifically the amount at which they're sold as well.
Yeah, and during the heyday of the 360, certainly leading into this generation, the sticker on the box that said competitive multiplayer online mode made a huge difference, right? Like, so that's the reason why everyone added multiplayer modes. I mean, like, remember Metroid Prime added multiplayer, right?
Yeah,
like
forced it even.
Very strong,
a
strong single player game added multiplayer
multiple times.
And so you saw that with everything from Assassin's Creed to Uncharted, like games that were traditionally single player adventures. And some of those games kept these multiplayer modes. Others have shed them, obviously, right? Like Fallout is a big success, and Skyrim was a big success without having this like big GTA online type experience. Yeah, but that is definitely, it is still a factor for a portion of the audience. And like when all is said and done, a game that has a multiplayer mode has a bigger chance at success and long-term play than one that doesn't.
No, and that's true, like 100%. You can put all the hidden medals you want in, and that's just how it's going to be. But I do feel like this game, to me, Zero specifically, feels like a game that I could have spotted at an arcade as a teenager and been like, oh, what is this controller thing? How does this work?
Yeah.
And have run with it. And I feel like
I think you're right down to the weird controller, too.
Yeah. And it feels like a lot of people, I see a lot of folks debating over whether making this game geared towards what Wii U was the right move or not. And to that, I did some thinking about it, and I do feel like Star Fox Zero was born at a time, or at least presented, and announced at a time when Nintendo thought they could turn around Wii U's woes. That was E3 2014, where Captain Toad, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, a lot of games, even Mario Party to an extent, were focusing on how to make people play with 2 screens. Before that, you had your Mario Kart 8, and you had experiences that you constantly asked yourself, what is the gamepad bringing to this? And so when Zero was announced, it was a time when I feel like Nintendo was trying to turn that ship around. A year later, they had to announce NX, which was kind of a silent statement that they couldn't turn that ship around. But this game still came out regardless.
I wish they had stopped and said, you know what? The co-op multiplayer mode with the 2 screens is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Like having the motion control aiming on the gamepad, one player, the ship control with the sticks on the other works really well. I love that co-op mode. It's very much very fun. I did a Let's Play with my kids. Were you able to watch it yet?
I haven't watched it yet, but were you terrorizing your kids the way you terrorize the rest of us in this office?
I'm very sarcastic and snarky, but the kids are great. Like you can see their different personalities. Kai constantly complains that Akira doesn't collect the golden rings. Like, get the golden ring, get the golden ring. It was funny. It was like a flashback to me and Casamassina playing. Where I'm like, Casamassina, how can you not see that coin?
Get the thing.
So I felt great kinship with my youngest in that. But but you can see how wonderful that experience and how it works together. And I feel like that would have been a good selling point for the gamepad where you didn't need it in single player. Again, like I maintain, it should have been, if you want to look behind you, you have a rear view mirror, you flip the view and look behind you.
But I'll play counterpoint and maintain that I think using the 2 screens the way they did it, they pulled it off. Like it's not the best looking game, and it is one that's hard to. And I know you don't think so.
You say that's because you got used to the limitations. So like, if I say right now, okay, big boss battle against big space station, you're like, oh yeah, that viewpoint was terrible. That was not fun to play.
I actually did fine.
Yeah,
and I can show it to you. But I think that still comes down to just our different opinions on it. Like for example,
but I'm not saying motion control aiming is the problem.
I know
now.
that. I absolutely
just want to make
sure
sure
you're doing that. Yeah, no. But I will
hang
say
back,
that
watch this go down.
Yeah, no, you should. But even like the critique in some places, and I think you've said this before too, where like, well, clearly the game doesn't look so good because they have to render it in 2 screens. That didn't stop Mario Kart 8. That didn't stop plenty of games that they have put out that are displaying the same exact view in both places. I think that for this game, it just came down to they went with this art direction. And it is not the hottest looking thing in the world.
It certainly doesn't help. It certainly doesn't help when you render things twice. Look at any VR game. Look at like announcements of upgraded PlayStation
so did Mario
hardware.
Kart 8 look any less beautiful to you? Because that was 60 frames per second game.
Well, so exactly. So what happened there? Because like
done.
Mario Kart 8 rarely dipped in frame rate, if ever. But this game does quite a lot.
I mean, the narrative to that, though, could just be how long they took to make this game.
Sure.
It could be artistic direction and choice. It could be the team's experience with
guys,
it. Like,
developers are not created equal. There's some developers that make gorgeous games on the same hardware that some developers fail on, right? It really depends on team size. And Mario Kart and Nintendo Tokyo and the Kyoto teams are tremendously talented, and not everybody can pull that off. But also, what is displayed in Mario Kart is probably not as complex as this, as what's going on in Star Fox.
I would argue there's plenty going on in that.
No,
in that
you're right.
game.
No, you're right.
But I would say
it wouldn't have hurt the game to not have the second screen. I can tell you that for sure.
Sure.
No, for me, it's just like it was just asking me to do a lot of things, and ultimately, I didn't play the game better because I had that second screen.
Well, and it's because those things don't feel natural.
I love flying in one direction and aiming with a gamepad. I think it's a learning curve. It takes time. I initially was opposed to it. And I got used to it, and I like that. And I think especially in some of the slower paced levels, it works really well.
And I agree with you there, and I feel like there is a learning curve, but I did get it. And if I didn't get good at it, I wouldn't be sitting here saying I think that they pull it off.
Sure.
Like, I feel if I was still struggling right now and not like able to wrap my brain around what it wanted from me, then I'd say I agree with you, Per.
Well, so that's my whole thing, and I'm glad you were able to finally connect with it. And I think I did to an extent. I think it creates some sort of it creates a lot of pacing issues in terms of things coming to a crawl almost arbitrarily, and a lot of times completely out of your hands. And I feel like the original Star Fox 64 had moments like that, but to a way lesser extent. And with this game, it's sort of like you're flying along, you're having this amazing battle, and all of a sudden you're forced into this sort of different perspective, and you're forced into a different control scheme. Sure. And I understand that it's not immediately intuitive, and that there is a rewarding aspect of getting it down. And once you do, it's really cool. But this is ostensibly Star Fox 64 Special Edition, right? I mean, this was like when they re-released Star Wars in theaters and they added some scenes, right? Made it prettier. They cleaned up everything.
Yeah.
That's where I find the sort of arbitrary hurdle of that control obtuseness being a strange decision.
Sure, I can.
Because if somebody
that.
like like we're all in the know. We're on a Nintendo podcast. We're gonna play this no matter what.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
I
Except
love
for Pear.
the tone of that. Speak for yourself.
Except for Pear. He's too big for us now.
That wig.
But the wig. That's a wig. It's very convincing.
It's powdered.
Where do you get more hair if that was a wig?
No, but I feel like, so say, for example, somebody who's sort of a lapsed gamer or a guy who really or a girl who really liked Star Fox 64 back in the day, and this is pulling on a lot of nostalgia, this game, right? Even right down to the good luck when you start a match. Sure. There is like, hey, remember Star Fox 64? It's back. There's even the classic R-Wing. All that stuff is there, but the barrier for entry is higher now. And that's where I get lost, where I'm like, Nintendo usually makes stuff that scales from kids to adults and everyone in between. And this, I mean, I think a kid can get this, but I think also like a casual gamer coming in and trying to play this being like, oh, I love Star Fox, and all of a sudden having to deal with multiple control schemes that were never part of the original vision but now are sometimes working towards
totally. And I
still find it a sort of baffling design decision.
But it is a case-by-case basis too. Like, I mean, Alex Ross on our editorial team was like, hey, I'm really excited for this game, and I hooked him up. He took it home a weekend. He came back. He's like, I loved this. I was like, man, you are unique in this office, because there is a lot of folks who are like, no, I could not stand
even looking
for
at the reviews, right? It's a range between
did not finish.
Some fives did not finish. Some come on, Arthur. Some fives. Some. We're friends, I can say that. Some 5s, some 6s, some 7s, some 8s, some 9s. And I think you get that spectrum a lot with games nowadays, because video games are reviewed outside of just like the 5-10 magazines. There's YouTubers, there's personalities, influencers, all that kind of stuff. So you get a much wider spectrum. Plus you have community people coming in, fan sites that can get their stuff elevated. But I think it's kind of fascinating to see how this one scaled. There's not like a consensus on this. There really isn't. Like,
no, it was divisive.
Usually you tell people read reviews to figure out if you want something, or then try it yourself or whatever. I think if you're on the fence on this one and you read 100 reviews, you'd still be like, I don't know.
But you know what? It's a divisive genre too. Like, if you made most people play Panzer Dragoon now, which we all loved, like there will be people who don't get it, who don't think it's that great. And like Crimson Skies. I love playing Crimson Skies all the time.
Good.
Where's that franchise?
Or Lair.
Seriously. No, not Lair.
Why not Lair?
No, I didn't like Lair.
Lair did something that Star Fox Zero, I hope, does, which is eventually patched in traditional controls. It took a few years.
Folks are starting to talk about that.
Right.
Yeah,
well, because
I don't think that's going to happen, though.
No.
I think folks need to let that ship sail.
And again, I don't think the motion control is the problem. It's the use of the two screens and what it demands of you. And like, if you played Eve Valkyrie, right, on VR systems, they decouple flying and looking and aiming, right? Like, you can look around in space with a headset, you play with VR goggles, and you can lock on with your eyes like you would in a real fighter jet plane, right? Like, you can look at something, acquire a lock, and then fire your rockets. And it's so natural, and it frees you from the constraints of having to use a radar screen, which is, by the way, how most other games deal with the fact that the enemy is behind you. You've got a little red dot, and you can tell it's behind you.
You just want to see behind you. Like, you're never going to let this go.
But that's what they're using the dot screen.
He really wants to see behind his ship.
But that's what's required in this game. You're supposed to know where the enemy is at all times, and they force you to look away from the main port, main screen.
But it's also a game where you're constantly moving forward, and it's not about shooting something that's behind you unless you're in all range. I don't want to keep this fight going forever.
But I don't mean just behind you. Well, you're wrong. But like,
you're wrong. I think that I think it works fine, and it works well enough for me, and that's why I got it good on our scale. The artistic choices are where I question more of that.
Okay, so explain to me, what does the gamepad let me do that I could not do with a smarter heads-up display?
Move in one direction and aim in the other.
Okay, but can't I just do that by tilting the gamepad? I don't have to look at the screen of the gamepad.
You don't have to look at the screen, but the way they designed this reticle, which could be the main argument that we're both trying to have right now, does show up in a way that shots that look like they should hit on the TV don't, because it's honestly not perfectly aimed that way, the way the reticle is actually shown.
Okay, Splatoon, though.
What about
Splatoon does? Splatoon does it perfectly well. Motion
but it's not the same
aiming.
game as Splatoon, and it's not even a multiplayer game at that, which is honestly what Splatoon started out as.
But wait, so hold on.
Let's just have this stalemate.
The gamepad gets you nothing. Like, there's nothing. It gets you an alternate view, and like and like in some cases, it saves you from having a horrible view.
But you know what?
But
The
that's not
gamepad
a
will
good
also always be
solution.
the albatross by which every Wii U game will be judged,
And-
whether it used it right or whether it used it wrong. And it is an argument that runs itself into circles.
No, for sure. And by the way, like
I think
we
it's
got to move on soon. By the way,
Well,
so we gotta
no,
wrap
so
this soon.
I think it did, but I
Yeah.
don't think it does anymore because I think a couple years ago we were like,
It doesn't do much.
We'll let it go. And off-screen play became the big thing that's
right.
Like ultimately, the best thing that came from the Wii U gamepad is off-screen play. That's the best, or off TV play. The best thing that came from that. Everything else is and stuff like Mario Maker, obviously. And I think like motion controls and Splatoon work really well. But ultimately, their design decision here earned them the spectrum of scores from the 5 to the 9 range.
Yeah.
And I think had they just gone with something more traditional, they probably would have landed around 7s and 8s, maybe 9s everywhere.
Sure.
But ultimately, they took that risk, and I think it hasn't paid off with reviews, and I think those reviews and that sort of like hurdle is going to lead it to not paying off in sales, which makes me worry about the franchise in general. So I think ultimately making this decision, and this is what I still don't understand.
I don't think
Star
Star Fox was ever flying off the shelves to begin with. Though.
No, it wasn't.
I would say that like right
It's
off
a good
the
pun,
bat.
though.
Yeah,
but I do find it weird that they took this franchise and they're consistently shoehorning weird stuff into it. Like that doesn't need to happen. Like you look at the DS one.
Yeah.
It has like touchscreen
planning,
navigational stuff.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to use the hardware to the fullest. And to be fair, if all Star Fox had was a map, everybody would be saying, well, again, it's proof that the Wii U was ill-conceived because you don't really need the gamepad,
right?
But to that I say, no, the co-op mode proves like what a great setup you have in this game for co-op play. And I will also say in the gyro wing level, you control the robot with a first-person screen on the gamepad, and that feels really good. Like it feels natural to have this little drone on the bottom screen.
And the best part about it is that it is one of the few instances of that game where you are not being moved forward on the other screen.
Yeah,
and I think
that's
that's
for sure.
why it feels more natural there. And I feel bad because I did pan the gyro wing stages mostly because I didn't think they were well designed.
Yeah.
But I think the notion of what the gyro wing does as a vehicle and the way you can sort of micromanage how you control it, I think is a good idea. And I do think, and I agree with you on this, co-op is the best way to play it. And it does kind of bug me a little bit, and we need to end this soon because we've been going on for 18 minutes about it and we have other things to talk about. I just want to say that at the end of all this, it does pain me that co-op ended up being the cooler way to play, and visually the game does nothing to acknowledge that there's a second person in the cockpit. It's just a pair of lasers that are shooting in every other direction but the one that you're shooting in. And so I do wish some extra effort was made there. I will say that 100%.
But yeah, in the end, I think we all agreed. We all agree that it's a fun game. I enjoyed playing it. My kids like playing it. I think the co-op mode gives it some legs. And then, some of the medals are really well hidden. There's definitely a challenge to mastering this game, mastering the times, even beating the little training stages are challenge modes in their own right. So there's plenty of gameplay in that mode. So if you're worried about a short campaign, you will go back and you will find new things in it. And then having guard with it, it's just a really cool bonus.
Cool. All right.